right, so row by column. So here we go. We're going to take all of these numbers, and I'm going to go ahead and write them down because there's a bunch of them. I'm going to spread them out. So there's row 1. Now right next to it, I'm going to put column 1. I'm going to add all those up. So I wrote down all my row numbers. Next to them, I wrote my column numbers. Now I'm going to multiply and add. So what do I get? 1 minus 3 plus 0. Negative 2. Then I'm going to move over to this spot. How am I going to get that number? Row 1 again. So 1, negative 1, 2 times column 2. Now I am in row 1, column 2. So negative 1, 4, 3. Now add all those up. So what do I get? Negative 1, negative 4, and 6. 1. Now I'm ready for this spot. How do I find him? Second row, first column. So here's my 3, 4, and 0. And then my 1, 3, and 0. Add them up. What do I get? 3 and 12, so 15. And finally, row 2, 3, 4, 0, column 2, negative 1, 4, 3. So what's that? Negative 3 and 16, so 13. And there's the answer. Do you remember that from last time? Okay, matrix multiplication. Now, we're going to learn 2 things today. Next time you come to class, you must have a calculator because the entire thing is going to be on the calculator, all right? Not today. Today we're doing stuff by hand. Next thing in your notes, we're on page 45. Problem number 3 says evaluate. Now, what looks different about that? Does that look any different than everything we've been doing the last couple days? What looks different about it? Oh gosh, you guys. Okay, it's not a bracket. It's more of like an absolute value type look to it. That tells you this is not a matrix. Matrices look like this. They're bracketed. This is what's called a determinant. When you guys have to go, you go, okay? I don't want you to miss your bus or whatever. I appreciate you coming when none of the other people did. That's awesome. Thank you. The answer to this is going to be a number. One number. And here's how you're going to find it. You're going to take 1 times 4. You're going to take 3 times 2. And you're going to subtract them. So Ethan, very, very easily done. 4 minus 6. 4 minus 6. So the answer to this problem, the total answer, is just negative 2. That's all there is to it. So let's look at the next one. Can you do the next one? Here we go. 14 minus negative 3. 14, always do this first. Multiply those first. So I get 14 minus this one, which is negative 3. So the answer to the problem is simply 17. One number. The answer to these determinants is just a number. Alrighty?
Negative 3 times
What?
Are we on our notes right now?
Yeah,
Okay. I don't have the same numbers.
8 minus negative 3.
I don't have the same number either.
Okay, on page 45.
It doesn't have a page number.
Hey,
Okay, you're not on the right thing. These are not your notes. This is not your notes. We need your notes. Your notes start with page 44. Your notes start with page 44. Okay, so we're evaluating this determinant. That thing you guys were looking at is actually a homework assignment.
8 minus negative 3.
No. You start here. Always. It's like if you were going to read me these numbers, what would be the first number you'd read? -1? That's the first number you multiply. So it's -3 minus 8. The answer is -11. Okay? Now, with determinants, we only need to worry about square matrices. So, what do we mean by squares again? What does it mean to be a square matrix? 2 by 2, 3 by 3, 4 by 4, right? Same number of rows as columns. So once we've mastered the 2 by 2s, which I know we only did 3 examples, but kids, it's so easy. Times them, subtract them. Once we've done the 2 by 2s, then the natural progression is the 3 by 3. Anything bigger than a 3 by 3 we'll be doing on our calculator. Those of you who do not bring a calculator will do them by hand, and they take a very long time. Doing a 4 by 4 is easy, but it takes a very long time. So I would suggest you bring a calculator, a graphing calculator. All right, so we're gonna do a 3 by 3 by hand though. You gotta know how to do this one by hand.
You have this.
Yeah, this one's gotta be done by hand. These are not the hard ones. This is a 3 by 3. Here's what we do. Step 1. You should be taking notes, Ethan. Do you even have your notes out?
No.
So, first thing I do when somebody gives me a 3 by 3 is I recopy the first 2 columns. Whatever they are, I just recopy them. Notice, if they're negative, I have to copy the negative. I'm going to copy them exactly. The first 2 columns. Okay? Then, I am going to multiply. Now look where I'm starting. Right where I started before with the very first number. I'm going to multiply those 3 numbers together. So multiply those numbers together, and what do I get? -1. Okay, I'm going to keep track of them down here. Because now I'm going to multiply these 3. I'm just going to step over to the next diagonal, and I'm going to multiply those 3, and I get 6. And then I'm going to step over one more diagonal, and I'm going to multiply those, and I get 0. Now, total them up for me. 5. Now, this is a bigger determinant, but that 5 is the same as this -3 was. It's just all of that is like the -3. So guess what I'm going to do now? I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to multiply all those. And what do I get? Oh, watch it. 0. And then I'm going to multiply those, and I get -6. And then I'm going to multiply these, and I get 0. And I'm going to total those all up, and I get -6. That -6 is like the 8 was here. So what do I do with my -3 and my 8? What do I do with those 2 numbers? Subtract. Guess what I'm gonna do with these? Subtract. So the answer is gonna be 5 minus -6, which is 11. So we do it the same as a 2 by 2, it's just bigger. You have all of this minus all of this. Okay, let's try the next one. E. All right, what's the first thing I do? We're gonna have a quiz. This is the question. What's the first thing you do with it? Take the 2 columns out. That's right. So 3, 1, -2, 2, 4, 1. Okay, what's the next thing we do? Once we get those first 2 columns recopied, now we do the diagonals. So here we go. What's that? Remember, we always start with the very first number. Always start here. So 3 times 4 times 3. 36. Now step over 1. What's that one? 0. Step over 1 more. 1. Add them up. I want the grand total for these. So it's 37. Now what? Go the other way. So here we go. This would make -8. That would make 0. And that would make 6. Now total them up. I want the grand total for those. So that'd be -2. Now what do you do with those 2 numbers? Just like with a regular determinant, you subtract. So it's going to be 37 minus -2, so the answer is 39. One more, try it on your own, compare your answer with your partner. One more on the other side. This is letter F on the back of page 45. Boys, get a pencil in your hand. Okay, let's actually do something you think. You're doing this on your own now. You too, Geechee. You and your partner should get the same answer. I got -16. You matching that? I've shown my work here. Anybody want to argue about a number or did I multiply wrong? It's really easy to make a careless mistake here. So you just have to work very carefully. Ken, got it? All right. So 2 things we're going to learn today. One of them was about determinants. We know how to do those now. The second thing we have to talk about today is the next thing on the list here, which is matrix inverse, the inverse of a matrix. Now,
Pardon this interruption. At this time, all students who will be attending the play at Butler University need to be excused and meet at the bus on the circle. Again, all students who are attending the play at Butler University need to be excused at this time and meet at the bus on the circle. Thank you.
Maybe they left the bullet time and they're calling the people who forgot.
Maybe. Maybe. All right, here we go. We know how to multiply matrices. We can't divide matrices. There is no such thing as matrix division. So what we do instead of dividing is we multiply by the inverse. We are not going to do a bunch of hard inverse stuff, but we are going to learn how to find the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay? The notation is this. That means the inverse of A. It looks like a little -1 exponent, but it's the inverse notation. Finding the inverse is a 2-step process. The first step you already know. The first step is find the determinant. Okay, you know how to do that. What's the determinant of that matrix? We just talked about it. This is a 2 by 2. What's our determinant? 7. It's 5 minus -2. So your inverse is 1/7. It's 1 over the determinant. When you find the inverse, it's going to be 1 over the determinant times a new matrix. That new matrix has a name. It's called the adjoint, but I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about you knowing how to find it. Okay? So here we go. It's very simple. Where'd the 7 come from again? That's the determinant. So we start out with 1 over the determinant. 1 over the determinant. Now to find this new matrix, watch. See these two numbers right here? Switch them. So put the 5 here and the 1 here. So these two numbers in this spot just get flip-flopped. These other two numbers stay where they are, but their signs get changed. So in other words, that's a -1, it becomes a +1. That's a +2, it becomes a -2. And that's your new matrix. So again, how did I form that new matrix? I took these guys right here and did what with them? Flipped them. Then I took these two guys and did what with them? Changed their signs. So if they were both positive, they both become negative. I had one of each here, so I changed the positive to a negative and the negative to a positive. Now, I'm going to distribute and I am done. So 1/7 times 5 is 5/7. Times -2 is -2/7. And then 1/7 and 1/7. And there's your answer. That is the inverse. Okay. You ready to try another one? Here we go. Gotta find an inverse. So it's a 2-step process. What do I do first? Find the determinant. So the determinant would be 4 minus 0. So 1/4. Remember, it's 1 over the determinant. You're always going to get a fraction. Times some new matrix. How do I build the new matrix? I flip these two, so it's gonna be 4 and 1. And then, well, that's 0, so it just stays 0. That's a -3, so it becomes a +3. And then I distribute. So what's 1/4 times 4? 1. 3/4. 0. 1/4. And that's all there is to it. That's the inverse of matrix A. All right, I'm going to do one more with you, and then you'll try one on your own. Here we go. Step 1, find the determinant. So that'll be 6 minus -4. So that is 10. 1/10. 1 over the determinant. 1/10. Desiree, you with me? Now I gotta build this new matrix. So here we go. See these guys? You're gonna switch places. That 4 is gonna stay right where it is, but it's gonna become negative. And that 1's gonna stay where it is, but it's gonna become positive. Now we'll distribute, so here we go. That'll be our final answer. 3/10. 1/10, -4/10, 2/10. Now, sometimes, like on this problem, those fractions are going to end up reducing. I'm not going to force you to reduce them. If you want to reduce them, go ahead. This would be -2/5, and this would be 1/5. You don't have to. I'm not going to make you do that. I'm just going to be excited if you remember how to do this. Okay? All right, there's one more. Would you do this one on your own and compare it with your neighbor? You guys got the first one done? Oh, you got this problem done? It's the first problem on page 46. Okay, now wait a minute. Avery says the determinant turned out to be 0. And she says, can you do anything? And the answer is no. Because to build the inverse, you'd have 1 over 0, right? And what do we know about 1 over 0? It's not allowed. So for that problem, the answer is no inverse. It's called a non-invertible matrix. There's no inverse. And if we were doing a whole class in linear algebra, a whole class in matrix algebra, we would talk about what that means. But for now, there's no inverse. That matrix has no inverse. Okay? So, we've learned how to do 2 things today. Find determinants and find the inverse. What we're going to do now is, in your packet, not the notes, but the other packet I gave you, we're going to go through the practice quiz that's on the front. Because guess what? There's a quiz in your future. And while you have that packet out, I want to call your attention to the second page of the packet. It is called Determinant Inverse Practice. That's actually a homework assignment. That's part of your homework. You can do that now. That's exactly what we did today. Determinants and inverses. Okay? So you can do that this weekend and have that homework done. If we get done with the quiz, I'll let you go ahead and start it, but I don't know if we'll get done or not. Did you already do problem number 1 on this quiz? Okay, no, on the practice quiz.
Did 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Did 1, 2.
How much did we get done?
1, 2. The whole page.
We did the whole front?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're amazing. Did you get back yet?
We're on G on the back.
We're on G on the back. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have time. You're gonna be able to start your homework. Let's go ahead and finish this then. Okay, so we're doing problem G on the back of the practice quiz. You will be having a quiz like this, all right? So let's make sure we know how to do CA. All right, so CA, here's C, and here's A. All right, so what are this is C and this is A. What are the dimensions of C? 2 by 3. What are the dimensions of A?
2 by 2.
Uh-oh.
They can't work.
We have trouble in River City, folks. Those don't multiply. They don't multiply because they don't match in the middle. So no solution. On to the next problem, which is A minus 2B. So A minus 2B's. Now, can this be done?
Yes.
Yes, this is doable because A and B have the same dimensions. When you add and subtract, your matrices have to have the same dimensions, right? So here we go. Probably the first thing we'd want to do is distribute that 2. So I'm multiplying, so it'd be -2, 0, 10, and 8. I'm just distributing the 2. Now I'm going to subtract those. So here I go. 1 minus -2. What's 1 minus -2? 3. Thank you. 2 minus 0.
2.
3 minus 10.
-10.
6 minus 8. And there's the answer to the question. Now, you got 6 minutes. Go ahead and start working on homework. Maybe do that inverse. That sheet right there, that's homework. Maybe do that.